Yep.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum?
One thing before I call the meeting to order, there was a private vote that said, Don, you get 2 minutes to speak today.
Oh,
That's like
That was
one
permission.
plus one.
We only go meeting at a time.
But how many times do I get to do that?
One.
So be conservative.
That's it.
Be conservative.
I have to divide it up, down. It's up to you. Can we have a roll call, please, Dave?
Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Mr. Bradley. Present. Mr. Brown. Present. Mr. Peoples.
Present.
Commissioner Reese. Not present. Alderman Cone. Not present. Commissioner Boaz.
Present.
Commissioner Vines.
Present.
And Chair Strouder.
Present. With that, then, the first order of business is approval of the minutes. If you have looked over them, or will look over them, we will entertain a motion before the time.
So moved.
If it moved and seconded, that the minutes be approved, can we have a vote, please?
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley.
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Peoples.
Aye.
Commissioner Boaz.
Aye.
Commissioner Vines.
Aye.
Chair Strouder.
Aye.
Motion passes with all present voting yes.
All right, with that, the next order of business, Roman's gonna give us, 90-17, and then Don's gonna follow up with 9617, and we'll proceed as the agenda is printed and go from there.
Very good. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. This first item is a proposed rezoning of one parcel from the C multiple family dwelling district to the F neighborhood commercial district. The site is very small. It's less than 1/10 of an acre, and it's located near the southeast corner of Wisconsin Avenue and Utah Street in the Benton Park neighborhood, near Benton Park, the actual park, Cherokee Park, and Cherokee Antique Grove. The existing use is a vacant lot, and the petitioner would like to consolidate that parcel with the adjacent corner parcel at 3304 Wisconsin Avenue, which has a vacant commercial building on it, and we'd like to consolidate that into a single parcel for the purpose of renovating that building for a restaurant, some off-street parking, and a few rain gardens. The petitioner is King Campo LLC, a small firm, and they own both the rezoning site as well as the adjacent parcel. And representing the firm tonight is Sam Bauer, who is co-owner of the restaurant that is located at that site. This is a existing zoning map for the city, and as you can see, the rezoning site shown here in the black outline is Zone C multiple family dwelling district. The adjacent parcel at the corner, as well as all of the parcels at that particular intersection of Wisconsin and Utah, are Zone F neighborhood commercial district. Consolidating those two parcels would create a single parcel with two zoning districts, and the regulations basically state that in those particular cases, the zoning district with the more stringent regulations will apply. And since the C zoning district doesn't allow commercial uses, the petitioner is requesting that the site be rezoned to the F zoning district. These are some photos of the rezoning site. As you can see, it is a vacant lot. It was most recently used as a single-family building, but that was demolished in about 1999. These are photos looking both eastward and westward. And these are photos of the adjacent corner parcel that would be consolidated with the rezoning site. The building is vacant, has been vacant for about 20 years, most recently used as a auto repair shop or an auto detailing shop. It's in pretty bad shape. And then in terms of how the vacant lot lines up with those adjacent parcels, the photo on the left shows the vacant lot here as well as the vacant commercial building. To the south is the vacant lot, and immediately adjacent to it is a vacant and boarded single-family building, which sort of has an unusual site in that it's set back almost to the alley there. In terms of the properties at that corner intersection, if you could imagine this white strip being Wisconsin Avenue, and this being Utah Street, at the southeast corner is the site that we're talking about. Catty corner to it is a multifamily building that used to have a ground floor commercial use. I think it's been converted into residential. The northeast corner has a large single family with a side lot, and at the southwest corner is a mixed-use building with the ground floor ad firm and the housing unit above it. This is a site plan that was submitted by the petitioner. This is the building that would be converted into a restaurant. 8 parking spaces would be provided, 6 of which are located in front of the building. 2 would be provided at the rear. There would also be 3 rain gardens on the site, the largest of which is located on the vacant lot, and there's a couple scattered elsewhere. And so in the case of rainwater, stormwater, the stormwater would be directed to flow from this parking lot into the rain garden. The Metropolitan Sewer District has tentatively approved a grant that would provide for the construction of those rain gardens, but it has a condition, and that condition, one of those conditions is that the site be consolidated. I should also point out that the architect for the renovation of the building is Michael Griffin, who formerly worked at the City Strategic Land Use Plan designates the rezoning site as a neighborhood preservation area, shown here in yellow, and that holds true for basically much of the adjacent area, and that particular category allows for both residential uses as well as corner commercial uses. The rezoning would achieve 3 objectives according to the zoning administrator, including that the proposed consolidation would allow for the petition to continue development of parcels that are currently vacant and underutilized on the site. As you saw, the rezoning is in conformity with the city's strategic land use plan, and staff is recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions that Karen Bauer, the restaurant owner, is here tonight representing the petition.
Okay. With that, are there any questions from the commissioners?
Kind of restaurant are we talking about?
Just American food, American classics. There's a brick oven on site. Half the menu will be very clean, vegetarian. We have got a vegetarian chef, and the other half to afford organic foods kind of about really low price. It'll be BLTs, American classics. Cool.
A good friend of mine owns Go Brand Go right there at the corner of the marketing firm, and Derek Weber.
Derek,
Yeah.
Derek's been over several times.
I remember being over there a couple of years ago, many years ago, and being like, hey, wouldn't it be great to do something with this old contaminated gas station or whatever
The
it
more
was?
we hang out in front, we get a lot of that.
Yeah, so congratulations.
It's just for the record. What's your name,
My
sir?
name is Sam. Last name's Bauer, B-A-U-E-R.
Okay.
I'm the food guy at City Museum. I've been there 20 years.
Okay. And you're the developer as well?
I'm actually not the developer. Kevin King and Chris Campbell are. And they, it was a dollar building from St. Louis City. And they invited my wife and I to open up a restaurant. We were pretty excited about it. So we're the restaurateurs.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other? I did not see any support from Alderman. Is it in there? Okay. It's been second, it's been moved to approve and seconded. Any questions? Call for previous roll, any objection? Seeing none, bill passes.
Chairman, I don't want to blow my 2 minutes this early in the meeting. We skipped number 4 to number 5. And continue with going.
Okay, we won't hold that one in your 2 minutes. We'll let you go with that one. Hey, it was a good.
Okay, so this is a Chapter 99 lighting study and redevelopment plan for the Locust Street, Jefferson Avenue redevelopment area. The site is about 4.5 acres in size. It consists of 12 scattered site parcels bounded by Washington, 23rd, Olive Street, and Leffingwell Avenue, in Midtown and downtown West neighborhoods. The existing uses at those 12 parcels are 8 commercial buildings, 4 of which are vacant, and 4 parking lots, one of which is not actively being used. The building conditions vary considerably amongst those 12 parcels. In general, overall, the redevelopment area is in fair condition. The redevelopment plan is proposing an ambitious $55 million multi-phase mixed-use development project that consists of the uses that are listed there: office space, apartments, a new hotel, a parking garage, and a retail and restaurant complex. The respective developer is Renaissance Development Associates and various development partners. That particular firm has done a lot of work in this general area between downtown and Grand Center over the last 10 years or so, renovating many buildings for primarily, I think, creative office systems. I should point out Jason Johnson of the firm is here tonight. This is an aerial photo of the site. Again, it's centered on Jefferson Avenue, running north-south, and Locust Street, Locust Boulevard, running east and west. To get you a little oriented, some landmark uses include large AT&T tower located on Olive Street and the Wells Fargo Advisors complex, office complex located just to the south corner of A.G. Edwards. The developer has most of these parcels either under ownership or under contract, and what I'll briefly do is just present some of the larger development projects as part of the first one is the building on the left is the Mendenhall building, located on Locust Street, just east of Jefferson. The developer is proposing the renovation of that building for office space that would be suitable for small firms, rendering that renovated building on the right. The photo on the left shows an occupied office building located at the corner of Locust and Jefferson, and the proposal is to construct a new 125-room hotel at that particular site. Further down Locust are a couple of parking lots for AT&T employees, somewhat underutilized, I'd say, and the proposal here is to construct a 250-space parking garage on that site. On the left is a vacant, what's called the Beaumont Telephone Exchange building. You can see just beyond it is the large AT&T building on Olive Street, and the proposal is to convert that telephone exchange building into approximately 60 apartments and again some office space. And then on the other side of Locust Boulevard is another AT&T parking lot, and the proposal there is to create a restaurant and a retail district that would be made up of cargo shipping containers. In addition, and I won't touch on these, there's a fair number of other smaller parcels, including these 2 vacant commercial buildings. So the City Strategic Land Use Plan designates all of those 12 parcels as a special use area, which includes a wide variety of uses. And I should point out with Hicks' presence that a couple years or so ago, most, if not all, of these parcels have different designations, probably an opportunity area or other designations, and there was a large-scale amendment of the strategic land use plan anticipating that developments along this nature would happen in the future, so it could, in fact, is coming to fruition. The redevelopment plan does not provide for the use of eminent domain. As I mentioned, the developer has either owns or has most of these parcels under contract. It does provide for the use of up to 10 years of tax abatement, and I gather that the Alderwoman is waiting to see the analysis of the tax abatement terms from SLDC before the final endorsement of the redevelopment plan. I think she's happy with all the uses, but has some concerns about perhaps the length of tax abatement. And staff is recommending approval of the lighting study. Again, Jason Johnson is here tonight, and questions.
I think we saw one of these parcels in a rezoning matter a while back. I say that for sure, but Jason was in to see me several months ago just talking about getting involved in this area. As you can see, it's multiple parcels. And it's kind of exciting, straddling Jefferson. Jason, if you just wanted to give a couple moments of thoughts about what sparked your interest in this area, what your overall goal is, I think
Sure.
I'll appreciate it.
I could talk about this for hours, and I know you like 2 minutes, so I'll keep it brief. So
See, it's working.
we've actually developed 52 buildings just west of this site over the last 15 years, and like we said, we've created a neighborhood that is flourishing with creative districts, as much residential as we could possibly get, given the smaller scale of the buildings and the restaurants. And so one of the things that we've done well is been able to attract creative agencies to the district, but because of the size of the building density, we've not been able to come to the table with many office spaces that are much smaller than, say, 2,500 square feet, because as you know, when you get into the core of the buildings, they get dark and you can't break them down. So now that we have 45 agencies in the district, we're really missing out on a large portion of the creative world, and the fact that you have a lot of startup activity in the nature of that business, and we're not able to capture any of those people because they need spaces smaller than that. So when we started identifying, what we're missing over the last 15 years, it's basically retail and it's small office space, and it's something that's going to bring everybody together for a little bit better sense of community. And when we started looking at the Beaumont Exchange building, which was the big one, the historic adaptive reuse project, that building is shaped like an E, so we can actually break it down into smaller startup office spaces. So that building will have 5,500 square feet of co-working, about 5,000 square feet of maker space, and 60 apartments, and 25 spaces that are small, kind of live work, 640 square feet to 1,000 square foot office space. So it's a building that's perfect for that, but it's in the middle of nowhere. You would think because of the fact Wells Fargo Advisors there and some other really great, residential development, that you would have something that would be attractive for us to do a project like that, but it's not. So what we had to do is expand the project, and that's exactly what we're doing. We get a lot of feedback from the agency people about it's hard to recruit young talent or keep young talent in the city. So if you think about the fact that Downtown West has several residential developments, unfortunately, a lot of them have been done in a silo. They're not mixed-use development, and there's not much there that creates a sense of community for those people. Parlayed with all the corporate butts that are sitting there along our southern boundary, with all the creative agencies that we've already put there, we need something to gel it all together. So what makes a more interesting retail, restaurant, microbrewery, music venue establishment than a shipping container retail village that will bring everybody together in what we feel like will be a really great sense of community. As we know, retail's hard, even with all those components that we have already surrounding us and what we're bringing to the table. If we can land a hotel, which we have an operating partner online to do, you also have out-of-town dollars coming in on a constant basis that will help keep that retail establishment viable. We can finally get to the point where somebody can come in from the airport, stay in a cool hotel, interview with a great agency, have music and drinking and food and retail experience that makes them actually want to consider St. Louis for a job opportunity with one of these agencies. So that's what we're trying to do, and all the ancillary buildings kind of around it. When you really create a really great sense of community from an urban planning perspective, in our opinion, is you keep it as dense and walkable as possible. So all the buildings that we've been able to get site control of around that aren't the highest and best use around this project, we're aspiring to put in the coffee houses and the potentially Airbnbs and the other music venues and things like that around these bigger developments. Now, the project in red on the east side of Jefferson is actually another 52,000 square foot building that we actually are putting 2 of our anchor agencies in from down the street that are expanding. And then that building will have office spaces from 1,000 to 2,500 square feet. So when we move in an agency in the neighborhood right now, if they sign a 5-year lease and they've outrun the space in 2 years, we let them out of their lease and we always move them into something bigger. And so out of the 45 agencies that we have down there, about a third of them have taken advantage of that, if not once but twice over the last 10 years. So the really cool part about this is we're going to be able to capture people from co-working all the way up to about 10,000 square feet to help incubate these kind of everything from startup up to successful creative, businesses in this district and really kind of put something together in St. Louis with a community center that we can all really be proud of. So we're very excited about it.
I don't think that story's known well enough. No. Thank you.
And they say you can have another minute if you need. Don.
I actually probably need a little more prayers to make sure this all comes off the way we hope,
Any questions for Jason or Ron?
2 quick ones. The State Farm office, is that the only building that would be demolished in this project zone?
Actually, the State Farm building and that little tiny business card building
Oh, okay.
probably go away too, because it's halfway condemned now.
Okay. And then replaced with, is that the business card place?
So we're thinking, as we finalize, because we're also now kind of working with the Sam Light Loans people, to get something there that's a little bit more engaging, that actually might come down and become more of a pedestrian-friendly thoroughfare, trying to draw people out of the Wells Fargo garage over into the center of this development before they get in their garages and drive to the county.
Okay. And then if all things fall into place as you envision or hope, what's the timeline on it?
So we actually, the building on the east side of Jefferson, we hope to start construction on in the next, 30 to 45 days, given all of our final approvals. And then, given that we get the tax credit release that we hope to in July for the state tax credits for the Beaumont building, that will start construction in July of next year, given they get released on July 1st. We hope to start by July 15th. And then the whole project, in essence, we're hoping to have done within a 2.5 to 3 year period.
And what agreement have you reached with the insurance agent that's going to be displaced?
So we have a couple ways to go with them that we've worked on. He's either going to relocate into a building that's about 2 blocks over on Olive, or we're going to do a real estate exchange for him for a condo, a commercial space in the first floor retail part of the garage.
So we don't lose them, he stays.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Is that where you put your insurance? No, it's just, I happen to be State Farm, and you drive, he's got great marketing visibility, you know his name. Yeah. No, my agent's out in the
Well, maybe we should look into that.
I know. Tell her I got some for you. Any other questions?
Move approval.
It's been moved, I have a second. Previous roll. Call for previous roll, any objections? Hearing none. Which one is this one? 92-17 is clear. Next is Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jason. And we won't start the clock on you yet on doing your presentation, but if you say, I just want to say a few things, then the clock starts. I was going by what the commission said, Don. This is not your all.
I'm done. No. So, I actually haven't seen the presentation I'm about ready to give, because we put it together with the help of Dick Zerida. Dick used to be a staff member. Dick has come back as a consultant with SLDC and LCRA to help with this zoning matter, which is a special use district. We don't do special use districts very often. Dick has written all of them. This is in some ways a complicated one, in some ways a simple one. Jay Wilson from SLDC is here. Jay is Watson. I do that all the time. Jay Watson III, for me to be proper, is here. He's the new Project Connect director, project manager for the area which is around in the NGA, which is what we're going to be talking about. I got to go back to it. So I'm going to start, I'm going to then turn it over to Dick. I'm probably going to prod Dick, believe it or not, to move fairly quickly. But I want to set up this philosophy. In the center of that area is the 100 or 99-acre NGA site. Our SUD, which is the zoning overlay, which gives us a toolbox to refine and more manage the uses than what the current zoning does, is for almost 1,000 acres around that site. It's about a half-mile radius around the site, extending into a number of neighborhoods, and we call it the NGA Protection and Enhancement Zone area, because that's what it is. It's about a half mile around the NGA. It's bounded, as you can see in the description. That area is close enough and approximate enough to the NGA that they've offered up certain restrictions that they'd like to see around it. It makes sense in that regard. You will hear some of those from Dick. You can think of some things logically off the top of your head, that a gas station across the street that is volatile might not be the best use to have next to such a facility. Think of that type of thing. A cell phone tower that might both be a visitation, a visible sight line to the facility, but also transmits electromagnetic type communications might also be an issue. So those are some things that we've heard from the NGA, and then there's some things that we're going to tweak just to help with the neighborhood as we go along. You saw down the road a little bit in the slide presentation that will show you the site, and we'll get to that. But I think I'm going to ask Jay. I know most of you will know that the NGA is the Department of Defense and is being relocated from within the city in one spot to this general area. They're needy in their mission in that they are a 24/7, obviously highly secure facility. And last I heard, Jay, correct me about this, the average wage for those 3,100 workers is about $86,000. 97 now? So sons and daughters that you think that you want to pay off their student loans, if they can get a job there, they're doing good. So be thinking about that. We know the trials and tribulations to get it located, and we'll talk a little bit more about the site. But so the special use district, unlike the previous zoning we did for the restaurant, that was from a petition from the landowner. This is us. This is us as the city proposing this tool. And it's the city as ourselves, the planning commission, the city as a whole, and the land clearance for redevelopment authority, which is the people that discuss most often with the NGA, and have it an agreement to transfer the property to the NGA. And the timeline of that transfer, Jay, is now about summer of 18, just around the horizon. They're requesting, they have regulations that are establishing some of these restrictions in this zone, and we hope to accommodate them. I'm going to ask Dick to come forward and talk about now some of the specific aspects of what we're doing in the zoning overlay tool. The zoning overlay tool, by the way, will be administered by the zoning administrator. If you come in with your property in this area, they will look, therefore, at two things, what the zoning is and what the special use zoning requirements are. So I'll reintroduce Dick Zarek to some of you, who was a staff member for a long time before he retired. And then, given you've heard us that we're shorthanded in a number of ways at PDA, we're certainly shorthanded on a complicated SUD, in many ways complicated, but we certainly want to get it right. So LCRA contracted with Dick to come and work on this and help us get it right. So Dick, if you take up the extra 15 seconds that are in my 2 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The major thing is that it's regulation of uses and also height. from the discussion of the towers and things, you know there's a lot of complaints about height. So that's in here under uses and also separately in Section 8, the limiting height. So the SUD is adopted to reflect zoning districts, and so you're regulating the uses and the heights, and under the SUD, it has to be in response to a well-defined problem. And there's vacant land, vacant buildings, in the ordinance, there's information showing that there's some problems, not only in industrial and commercial areas, but also in some of the residential. And then the two ways that the land uses are being controlled was by regulating, by prohibiting 10 types of uses. And those match up to the things that NGA is concerned about encroachment. And then the conditional uses, the 24 of them, is that deals with, the first part is protection of NGA. The other one is the enhancement. How can we implement plans? How can we get uses there that the residents, the city, businesses that would like to see? Using the conditional use hearing process to make sure that the types of uses there meet the standards of plan development and are good neighbors to NGA and the residents. And, so I guess one point is that this is an overlay district. So as you'll see, we'll get to all these things that are prohibited in conditional uses, but there's a lot of other things, residences, apartments, offices, a lot of retail uses, such as the grocery store. They're not prohibited, they're not a conditional use. And what happens is, since they're not covered in Section 6 or 7, it goes to whatever the underlying zone is. So if it's C, multiple family, you can have a single family house there. So there's a lot of uses that are there, and people that may be asking what's going to happen to mine, how this may not affect a lot. But it's the people that we want to affect. And this is just the zoning, and you'll remember that Pruitt-Igoe was rezoned in the last year, and you've already approved, but the rezoning of the NGA site's still pending. So the purpose of the section part of this is to respond to the encroachment challenges, and so it can affect the actual site, or it can affect the mission, and that's where a lot of the communications things, and so there's hazardous and toxic land uses that if there's an explosion or chemical release, there could be a plume that could go, and the worst case ones need a half-mile protection. So that's the reason for the outer boundary being a half-mile. And then there's all sorts of structures and towers that there's kind of ones that emit these different radio waves, and then there's ones that are transmitting back and forth. So if you think about it, some are interfering with NGA, and the other ones are kind of competing and doing the same thing. So they're interfering in a different way, and they're concerned with those. And then they're concerned about other nations financing and having, that their way to find out about this information is to intercept it or to pose a threat to national security. So under this ordinance, if they show that somebody owns something that's not up to any good against NGA, we can say, it's in this ordinance that says you can't do that. Then the other half, the enhancement part is to improve the quality of life for those people that work there and live there. And we've discussed, that there's some well-defined problems. And that we see the answer as being redevelopment and preservation uses that fit in with the character of the neighborhood. This is a list of the prohibited uses. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see our favorite is the gas station exploding. But utility towers, a lot of things over 65 feet. And then there's diverse government facilities. And then there's light industrial and commercial uses that introduce, manufacture, or produce hazardous or toxic substances. We do have an exception there for industrial sites that are secured 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, controlled access that are maintaining and properly handling the chemicals. And if there would be new sites that wanted to use these, they'd have to show that they don't use these substances, or that they have a site that's secured enough to allow it. Then there's welding activities are also something that's of concern with their communications equipment. Since we have a lot of vacant land, we've put a caveat of new buildings or construction additions to buildings are allowed. They would be a short period of time. What they don't want is somebody in the manufacturing process doing welding, and interfering with the communications for a long period of time. And power substations and transmission of power are a big problem. And then there's this whole electromagnetic spectrum thing. And I think if you look at the communication spectrum, and the radio is that part of it, TV and microwaves, each has their section, and they're protecting their section of that, and they don't want this interference or siting of buildings that provide line of sight into it for the protection of the people that work there, and also some sort of attack or anything. Conditional uses, these are kind of mostly LCRA's favorite ones that when you talk to neighborhood groups, these are the ones that they either have complaints about previous owners, or they really want to have a conditional use hearing and get some hours of operation and make sure that there's no loitering out in front, and the sort of thing where if there's a murder or a crime in front of a building, you can pull them in, for if there's loitering involved. But these are not necessarily uses that you don't want. You want ones that are good operators. And so the SCD is trying to encourage development. And so this is a way for the city, the neighborhood, the businesses to speak about these type of facilities.
Meaning in shorthand, that regardless of the underlying zoning, these facilities will trigger a conditional use hearing, so the public will have a chance to speak about them, and NGA will too.
This is the strategic land use plan, and you can see that a lot of opportunity areas in the center, and then there's residential to the north and east, and industrial to the west. But one thing I'd like to see, this conditional use hearing process is kind of a way the city and the neighbors and that can try to get a plan to meet the plan, so it's a way of implementing the plans, which is and I think the amount of J industrial is kind of a concern. This is where it's most likely that there's uses that would conflict with RMC and would be located. Now, there is no K unrestricted land, which is basically heavy industrial, so that's very good. But there's 3,557 parcels, almost 1,000 acres in the total area. But only 130 of them are J industrial, which is 4%, and even acreage is 9%. So this is a very small part of it. And the second table is to break that down. Okay, you have J industrial, and we'll talk a little bit about suggesting rezoning. There's public housing projects that have been next door to NGA for 40 years. It's obviously residential, and it's got industrial zoning. So there's 57 parcels that we're recommending the 6 acres be rezoned sometime before NGA opens. This is a logical one. And then Sensient has a large campus. They've got 32 parcels. It's 38 acres. They're going to be a secured facility. So if you kind of take them out of the mix, what's left? It's 41 parcels, 43 acres. So we've already started with industrial being a real small percentage. And half of it, we're really not, if we rezone things and kind of do the zoning that we're supposed to be doing, then we're really only concerned with, 43 acres out of, 3,500. So it's not the restrictions and all the prohibitions on that, it's really not affecting that big of an area. And another thing is that there's a lot of vacant land, and it's kind of a situation where these uses, there's nothing there, so we get to, the SUDs prohibit new or adding on, to make it too high, that there's restrictions. So what I'm saying is there's not a lot of uses that would be non-conforming continuous uses. We're going to see them coming in as new development, and then we have the mechanism with the SUD to take care of it.
So as Jay looks at that chart and realizes he's has an area of 3,500 parcels, it's really the 41 parcels that are Zone J that have, without the SUD, the most opportune to do something that would not be welcomed by the NGA. And so the to-do list, after all the dust settles, is really working with those 41 and those 41 parcels in the most part.
And some of them, percentage of them are in residential areas that wouldn't make any sense anyway. But, we can't just go in and rezone them, but it sure would be nice if the developer would buy this vacant industrial land that's completely surrounded by residential, so that's more residential.
And we're going to encourage the SODC LCRA on those lots to, 1, modify the TIF regulations for this area, and 2, potentially put in a new Chapter 99, so the incentives are on those 41 properties are to do something other than the prohibited activities. And this is PDA is the proud owner of a drone, and this is a drone shot of the site J fairly recently. What did you say? Of the 97 acres, obviously downtown's in the background. Jay is helping, and along with a team under Otis's direction, get this site prepped to be able to be turned over to him next summer without roads, without utilities, and consolidated into one parcel.
And note that this is Sensient's camp. And another thing is that their industrial portions of their buildings are back. There's offices and lake and walking trail. So they're back from MGA. This is looking northeast to the residential areas.
So instead of showing you pictures of 3,552 properties, showing you what, that's
We only have
Pruitt-Igoe.
half of those. That's looking south, Pruitt-Igoe, towards downtown. This is, I guess, over Pruitt-Igoe, looking north at the site. That looks similar to the first one. There's St. Louis Avenue.
Street's been removed at this point? Montgomery is 25th. Right now, they're heading south towards Cass. So they're, as they finish excavation and grading they're past initial soil sample, excuse me. They will move further south towards Cass and abandoning those streets as they go.
And you want to take care of this?
Sure, so, again, Dick's not technically PDA staff anymore, but, thank him for all his help on that. We're doing the work. We do find, I will say, Dick's worked with a team that includes Mary Hart and others from the zoning office, a handful of attorneys, including David and Rebecca Wright from the city council's office. All that has gone into this in multiple stabs at the wording, in addition to the intent to get it right. I will often say that if this goes to court, I'm the one that testifies. So we've been pretty careful about the T's and I's to get that right. We will say that, guess one of the things that we will do is this becomes a board bill, and the board bill is heard at the Board of Aldermen in a public hearing. Will be in late January. The notice requirements include at the moment that we'll be posting on all the blocks that are associated with this. So anybody that wants to get a little exercise in early January to come help table placards to light poles.
Yeah, 3 times bigger than our roof, and I
Yep.
think some people still remember it.
You're welcome to participate. But what we'll ask for you tonight is that we do find it in compliance with the strategic land use plan, with the neighborhood plans, and with the redevelopment plans that have been acted in this area. And request your approval of the resolution and this material, knowing and acting as part of the written material that we, during the balance of December, if we need to do some tweaking, we could do that second slide. The underlying. And so we're reminding ourselves, as this is now Project Connect area, and it has had efforts with the neighborhoods to encourage certain activities, so the neighborhood plans are in there. And there is, as Dick mentioned, zoning in St. Louis at times is archaic, so there is a Cormac Barron-owned housing project that is developed on J-zone land. That's something that we should rezone, and do it, get to do it. And so, we'll recommend the approval of this and request your favorable approval.
With that presentation, Bill, Don, and Dick, we are looking at 96-17. Any questions?
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved, it's approved. Call for previous roll. Any objections? Hearing none, 96-17 has been approved as well. And I think that leaves Don with another one. Writing notes.
And really, in our situation with short staff, this has been written by Connie Kamasula, who really is an urban designer and does other things, but it's a redevelopment plan, and its only complication in reality is it's part of a larger site, and just a small portion of it, building that varies in 1 to 3 stories, industrial building, is being purchased and redeveloped. It's planned to be demolished, this existing portion, and expanded it for the expansion of the business on site. You'd see it's sort of an odd-shaped area intersected with railroads and arterials. It is in poor condition in many ways, antiquated. That's not the bird, Avery in Forest Park. That is, probably and I say that in part is to give you the condition, and also is this is something that again, Krasnoff worked on, because it will be in a demolition approval. Now, this part of town is complicated at times, and on the upper left is the part of the building that will remain, and then these are a view of some of the properties nearby. This is that South Broadway area, sometimes known as the Patch, with some residential sprinkled in. You see it now in the strategic land use plan. You can see sort of the triangle there, and the railroad doesn't show up. But it is in the strategic land use plan, meant to be business and industrial. So we will tell you that we find it as being in conformity with the strategic land use plan. Not that it's not purview, but it is a 10-year tax payment in domain, and we recommend approval.
With that, presentation by Don on 9317. Any questions? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded. Any previous roll? Call for previous roll. Any objections? Hearing none. 9317 is approved by the commission.
You may have recalled, we looked at something in the bill for St. Ferdinand Home. This is the blinding study that goes with it. These are 100 acre. They had a great ribbon cutting. We did a zoning item for that. Was in the last two. This is my last item that I need to talk about. But then I will use a portion of my remaining 2 minutes after this. Stay tuned, it's going to be fun. Quick, remember we talked about that street vacations have been delegated to the director. I am going to bring you with more full vigor street vacation that is an applicant from above the property owners for a real vacation that's a segment of a street that's been used in but street vacations come from all sorts of varieties, and this is one where a new developer had a choice. They're building some sidewalks to service the building in the city right away on the existing sidewalk, and they have some projection aspects of the building, so all over the sidewalk, so they're not doing an encroachment permit. They're asking for it to be vacated, a portion of the sidewalk. It's at Forest Park Avenue. It's for a proposed hotel. A picture will serve 1,000 words here in a second. And there'll still be a new sidewalk for the food traffic and a tree lawn. And it's in the chapter 353 of the University, so they've been very diligent in watching for it. And here's what it's in essence is. The plan on the right shows it's the old Restore building, and they're replacing it with this hotel. And you can sort of imagine that along the property line at the bottom, they are doing some adjustments to their entrances, and accommodating the ADA comes out into the sidewalk, and not the choice of that portion being vacated. And those rectangles with the main facade at the property line, those rectangles project over what is the city right of way, hence they're in for an approval, which will take an ordinance, by the way, to vacate that small portion of sidewalk of the right of way that's along the front of the building. It is a little bit unusual, but it is not in the real spirit that it's causing for the ending of people traversing in front of it. And so I bring it to you some of this information, not necessarily as the vote, but I'm going to assume that I can get a consensus of the board that I can administratively approve it and pass it on. Any thoughts about that?
Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
It is an interesting one, and so, that's it. There's new business, there's executive session, we don't need it, we need a motion for executive session, no. Our next meeting, stay tuned, it's scheduled on the paper for Wednesday that's in, New Year's week. We will do all in our power not to have that meeting that week, but the next week. We think we've accommodated all things that need to be mathematically require us to do that. But we'll stay tuned for just a little bit. I look forward to moving that meeting date from that particular date. So that's one to think of. Second, I'm going to briefly tell you an effort that's going on in the city will make the papers more and more, is between downtown and Forest Park. Multiple efforts are going on. One is something called the Arch to Park, an initiative by many of the civic ventures and supporters of Cortex to do more in the economic development realm. And Great Rivers Greenway is undertaking a competition to do a greenway linkage from the park down to the Arch. And that doesn't mean it's just a bike trail, it means it's a greenway. It is an international design competition to get all the best possible ideas for the design of it, because it will be funky in places. It may have local artists through barricades. It will have aspects that will touch upon all cultures, potentially, all that type of stuff. There were 19 applicants for the event, for the commission. They'll be announced, I think, tomorrow. There was a jury from across the country that viewed the 19 applicants be narrowed down to 4. Each of them will get a stipend during the spring to come up with meet with the public and come up with a design for this. It's kind of exciting in that way. So that's out there. It's sort of a big deal. I'll add that the jury includes the planning director for the city of Detroit. And I'm an alternate, yeah. So I keep telling them to stay healthy. But I got to participate in all the negotiations last week, and it was fascinating. There was folks from all over the country and some local. It's a small world, folks. There was a woman from San Francisco who was an architect with those big firms, SLM and others. And so, yeah, in San Francisco, yeah. And got a buddy that grew up in Pruitt-Igoe that's an architect in San Francisco, just is transitioning out of his firm. A guy named Michael Willis. He says, oh, I know Michael. A couple decades ago, we were both in a work session where she went as a representative from a big firm. He was there working on this little boutique firm, having moved from St. Louis to do this. They were the 2 African Americans in the world some 20 years ago as architects. So, instant bond, great conversation. Again, the 4 finalists will be announced, I think, tomorrow. It will be exciting. The fringe benefit was pretty tightly choreographed, but I did take Maurice Cox, who's planning director of Detroit, up to visit with Jeffrey for a charrette-type event that the EPA was doing in concert with our work on vacant land in North St. Louis that is really part and parcel funded by Tracy to have 2 very capable people that you don't see often enough here, Lawrence Jen and Rebecca Weaver. It was sort of a helicopter in to see what was going on. It was a helicopter in to speak with Jeffrey a little bit. The irony is I also took him on a city tour later is many of Detroit's vacancy problems are at a whole nother scale than ours. But he was also saying, he wanted to see good parts of town also after I took him to Wells Goodfellow. I did that. They're looking and working at 20-acre units in Detroit. And we don't have 20-acre units very readily. We're very much remembering that in much of our neighborhoods, it's missing teeth. And sometimes the whole grill is gone, but not the whole block. It's a big challenge to help create these green spaces. They're doing on the scale of 20 acres. They're asking developers to buy it and maintain the homes that might be there, fence it off.
but they also have a $120 million pot that's helping with that, so. Proud to have these in town, and that's all I have to say. Have a happy holidays, and stay tuned for when the date is.
Sweet. With that, any other comments?
To adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and second, the meeting has now been adjourned.